Hey, Mr. Zimmerman here. We're doing 5-5 point slope form. So we're skipping 5-4. We might come back to that later. 5-5, we're learning about point slope form of the equation of a line. Up to this point, we've only been working with the slope intercept form. And we should have the slope-intercept form memorized. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Point slope form is going to be y minus y sub 1 equals m times parentheses x minus x sub 1. And I'm going to work from example 1 in your book on page 300 to show you why the point slope form works. I'm not going to do exactly what they do in example 1. I'm just going to draw a sketch here. Let's say I've got 2 points on this line. This is x, this is y. This will be x sub 1, y sub 1. So those sub-notations just indicate they're not the same point. So the distance to get from here to here, if I were looking for the rise, would be y minus y sub 1. And the distance to get from here to here, if I were looking for the run, would be x minus x sub 1. So we know that slope is rise over run. And in this particular example, I have m equals rise is y minus y sub 1. And my run is x minus x sub 1. So if I wanted to solve this, I'm going to use my reflexive property here. Let's say that this equals m. Okay, if I want to solve this, then I would have to multiply both sides by x minus x sub 1, because over here that would cancel. So I have y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. So that is how we get the point slope formula. So how are we going to use this formula? Well, we can use this to write equations of lines like they do in example 2 in your book. They give you a line, it goes through the point -3, 6, and it also goes through the point 1, -2. So in your book, they've graphed that out for you. -3, 6 is right about there. 1, -2 is right down here. So I've got a line that looks like this. So let's say I want to write an equation for this line. Well, I can start with the y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. And I need to find two things. I need to find m, and I need to find a point which I can call x sub 1, y sub 1. Now they happen to already give me a point. For the purposes of homework, let's use the first point they give us in our equations. Now any point will work, but for the purposes of homework, let's use the first point so that we'll all have the same answer. So the only thing I have left to do is find the slope. And I can do that from the picture. I can tell that I've got to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So down 8. And then I have to go over how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope is -8 over 4, or -2. So again, if I'm working in point slope form, y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Then I've got beginnings of a solution here, beginnings of an equation. So now I'm going to use this point here, which I labeled x sub 1, y sub 1. So my y sub 1 is 6, so I've got y minus 6 equals -2 times x minus x sub 1 is -3. x minus negative 3. So in this case, we do need to simplify one step after this. Have y minus 6 equals negative 2 minus negative 3 is going to become plus 3. So times the quantity x plus 3. So it is important to make sure that you simplify. Now, what if they tell you that you need to write this equation so that it was in slope-intercept form? Well, we could do that. This would be our answer. That's an equation in point-slope form. But we can simplify this if they ask us to. For example, I could do y minus 6 equals negative 2x minus 6 by distributing the negative 2 to the x and the 3. Then I would add 6 to both sides, and I would get y equals negative 2x. So this would be an answer in slope-intercept form, whereas this is an answer in point-slope form. So you got to pay attention to the instructions. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Let's say they give me a point on a line. Let's say my line goes through the point 3, 4. And then they tell me that the slope is 1/2. They want me to write the equation in slope-intercept form. Well, you know what? Let's do point-slope form for this one. Point-slope form. You need to memorize point-slope form. Point-slope form is going to be y minus y sub 1 equals m times parentheses x minus x sub 1. So I can take the information they've given me. My m will be 1/2. And my x sub 1 will be 3. My y sub 1 will be 4. So let's plug in that information. I get y minus 4 equals 1/2 times x minus 3. And that's it. You don't need to go any further because they told us to write the equation in point-slope form. And let's try another example. This example, they're just going to give us 2 points. They're not going to give us a graph. They're not going to give us a slope. They're just going to give us 2 points. So let's say they give us negative 4, negative 1, and negative 9, 2. Well, I know to write an equation in point-slope form, I need a point, which I have. I'll call this x sub 1, y sub 1. Again, for the purposes of homework, let's all choose the first one. First point is x sub 1, y sub 1. But then I also need a slope. Well, let's use our slope-intercept formula. I'm sorry, our slope formula to find the slope. So y sub 2 is 2, y sub 1 is negative 1, 2 minus negative 1. X sub 2 is negative 9. X sub 1 is negative 4. So I've got 2 minus negative 1 is 3 over negative 9 plus 4 would be negative 5. So my slope is negative 3/5. So let's plug that into the point-slope formula. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. And my y sub 1 is negative 1. So I have y minus negative 1 equals m, but I just found that my m is negative 3/5. times x minus x sub 1 was negative 4. And now I need to do a little simplifying. Minus the negative becomes plus. So I have y plus 1 equals negative 3/5 times x plus 4. Now you don't need to solve for y or anything like that because it said write the equation in point slope form, which we've done. Okay, and I think that should be enough to get you through the assignment. So good luck. Quiz tomorrow.